Hi, everyone. I'm Bomee Jung. I'm the Vice President of Energy and Sustainability at NYCHA. I'll just correct one thing, because as awesome as it would be to serve on a design commission, I don't. I have the dubious distinction of probably being the shortest serving city planning commissioner, unfortunately, which is a position that I resigned to take on this job working on energy and sustainability at NYCHA, but thank you for the promotion. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you all. I'm sure that you guys, I'm sure all of you have wonderful ideas about how NYCHA can be reinvigorating our portfolio. And what I thought I would spend my time doing primarily is sort of, do I have a clicker? Is sort of sharing with you some of the where we are, kind of how we got here, and what constraints that we're dealing with as we're thinking about how to position this portfolio for the future and to meet the mayor's 80 by 50 commitment. As Lori was saying, NYCHA's portfolio is big. We're a very important resource to the city. We serve, as Lori was saying, 1 in 14 New Yorkers who rents. And it's also particularly a critical resource when you get down to the really low income band. 75% of the units in the city that rent for $500 or less are in the NYCHA portfolio, and half of the units that rent at $800 a month or less are in the NYCHA portfolio. So when we're talking about really the low rent end of the spectrum, NYCHA is really it. The other important aspect to remember is that when we talk about permanent affordable housing, NYCHA is permanent affordable housing. When you're in NYCHA, it is guaranteed that you'll never pay more than 30% of your income, right? So this is really like when we're talking about how to figure out that, permanent affordable housing, this is the permanent affordable housing that we currently have. Am I going in the right direction? Yes. All right. The portfolio is also not only large but also varied. We have everything in our portfolio from sort of the towers and the park construction that you think of when you think of NYCHA, down to brownstones in Harlem, right? So, and everything in between. We have 1-family houses, 2-family houses, to the campus developments. And so the solutions that we have to look for are solutions that can't be one size fits all, right? Okay. And as Lori was saying, 60% of the housing stock that we have is 50 years or older. The piece of the bar that's in pink is portfolio that was funded by the city. That sort of grayish, eggplantish color was funded by the state. And the light green color is portfolio that was originally funded by the federal government. And this matters to some extent because of the fact that part of the reason why our portfolio is so diverse in typology is because of the different funding sources that we were using to, or that we used to acquire them. And they have also slightly different constraints physically. Okay, and here's where sort of the rubber meets the road. So this is giving you a feel for the financial position that we're in. NYCHA currently gets about $200 million in capital funding from HUD. What we're trying to show in this graph is that had we been funded at the level that we were funded in 2001, continuously up to now, we would have had more than $1 billion more to work with in reinvesting in our capital stock. So NYCHA receives capital funding as well as operating funding. These are the two public housing streams of funding that we have. And this is an actual loss, right? Because this $1 billion is $1 billion that we essentially billed to HUD for our operating money. So, but then we received less because of proration. That's because they got less money from Congress than they wanted. And so we took a haircut on on the costs that we sort of put in for reimbursement. So that $1 billion in operating money is a real loss of income. So that's where we are today, and that is the challenge that I smile as I say it. You guys smile with me. That's the challenge that the Next Generation NYCHA plan attempts to lays out and tries to address. And in NextGen NYCHA, we propose that we will address this through sort of a set of 4 goals. The first one is addressing short-term financial stability, and then diversifying our revenues for long-term financial sustainability. The second is to reinvest in our capacity to be an efficient and effective landlord. The third is to build and preserve affordable housing in support of the mayor's housing plan. And the fourth is connecting our residents with best-in-class services through effective partnerships with outside organizations. And the ones that I underlined there, I underlined because I've been spending the last 3 months or so sort of gathering the ideas for programs that we might do and sort of correlating them to how they fit into our goals, our NextGen NYCHA goals. And the ones that are underlined have some sort of sustainability touch to them. And so I just wanted to show you that sustainability is not just strategy, where is it? 7, where it says pursue comprehensive sustainability agenda. It's not just that strategy, it's woven in throughout the NextGen NYCHA plan. So the NextGen NYCHA sustainability agenda, which is what my team is working on, first of all, focuses on the key challenge that NextGen NYCHA lays out, which is reinvesting in our core capacity as a housing provider. So NYCHA has been doing, over the years, a number of different things, including social service provision. NextGen NYCHA basically says we are going to reinvest in the core business of providing affordable housing, and we're going to enter into partnerships to do some of the other things that are outside of housing but that are important to our residents. So when I talk about a comprehensive sustainability agenda, I'm using that as the lens by which we say, okay, my team focuses on this, and then there are other things that we want to do in collaboration. And so we've had an energy initiative at NYCHA for going on 20 years. In that time, we've invested about $200 million in energy efficiency. But it's really, for the most part, been focused on energy. And so what NextGen NYCHA's commitment opens us up to is taking that same kind of performance-oriented discipline and applying it to indoor environmental quality, water, and waste management. So where are we as we start that work? Well, so I'm sure all of you have seen these sorts of numbers, about $17 billion in total capital needs. On an annual basis, this $535 million is an average over the past 4 years of what we actually bid out in capital work. The thing that I wanted to point out here is that you'll see that if you look at the dark blue bar there, about 30% of the needs that are identified in our capital plan deal with envelope. But we actually spend 60% of the money that we have on an annual basis on addressing building exteriors. And why? Well, because we've got failing envelopes. This is one of our buildings, one view of one of our buildings. Our capital strategy is based on layering and phasing investments. So when we have a condition like this where you've got health and safety issues related to the building envelope, it's difficult for us to go in there and start messing about with energy efficiency and water efficiency and things like this, because we've actually, as the classic, news story of a lady with the rain in the living room, if that's happening, we can't go talk to that person about energy efficiency. So this is why the bulk of our current capital plan is really spending it on fixing envelope failures. And then what we have on the inside, this is Harlem River Houses on July 14th, 1939, about a year and a half after that particular development was built. The next largest share of the capital money goes to addressing mechanical improvements. And this is what we had as of September 23rd, 2015. And I made it black and white so you can look at it and go, oh yeah, it looks about the same. And that's the point, it looks about the same. I think we think that these boilers are probably from the 80s or maybe from the 70s. And my staff very helpfully put a picture of the guy yanking on the valve chain there so that you can really associate it with that photo. So I appreciated that effort. So that's what we have. And here's some geeking out by the numbers. So this is our boilers are 78% more than 15 years old. And then from an environmental perspective, and in the context of the 80 by 50 plan, 92% of our apartments are heated through steam. So ultimately, down the road, that probably has to come out somehow. Right? And then about more than half of our hot water is indirectly heated in tanks in each building. So a lot of probably standby losses there. And then thanks to the mayor's office, we had this nice little pie chart of end uses in a typical large building. And so we thought we would show you sort of something similar for NYCHA. And I guess the only takeaway here really is that 65% of the source energy goes to heat and hot water, right? So performance-wise, how are we doing? So 85 kBTUs per square foot is the median for multifamily site energy use intensity in New York City-ish. NYCHA's overall portfolio average is around 120 kBTUs per square foot. And as you can see in this slide, we've sort of broke it out by size, and there's quite a bit of variation happening here, right? So one of the things that we did is we looked at, okay, so if you've got 10 or more buildings, you're probably on a campus, and you probably have a district steam system. Are you better or worse than the ones that are single buildings? Well, no big surprise, you are a little worse. So some of it has to do with leaking steam lines and what have you. And then here's how we're doing just specifically for heat. The typical multifamily heating index is about 13-ish BTUs per square foot per heating degree day. And that's about where we are. Our median performance is about 13. What I'll show you, though, is, and this is the incredibly unscientifically small sample, but the purple boxes are the places where we've implemented some sort of controls, primarily in-apartment temperature sensors. And you can see that variation has come down quite a bit, and that performance is improved to below 10 BTUs per square foot, which is good. So following the path that we are currently on, which is doing the envelope improvements with our capital dollars and then going in afterward and doing the energy and water improvements through sort of a typical energy efficiency retrofit, the scope of work of which is about that. Where are we going to get to? Well, this is based on just for one of our projects. This is looking at our Sandy portfolio. We're after we do the work that we're projecting to do, we're only right at about the median performance of the typical multifamily building in New York. So we're investing a lot of money in our plant, but at the end of the day, following the sort of incremental retrofit approach, we're only going to get to be about as good as a typical multifamily building that's already out there. So that brings us to, I think, sort of the meaty, nice, what if portion of the agenda, which is what could we be doing if we had a lot more money, right? So we could be doing recladding. We could be, basically fundamentally changing the performance of the building envelope and bringing down load permanently that way. This is a project that Mark Ginsberg, somewhere here, is working on for us in one of the Sandy projects. That's some of the projections for savings. This is this is another Sandy project that KPF and Arup are working on. And similarly, this is, what we'd like to do there is to reclad the building, fundamentally alter the load profile. But the thing that I wanted to point out in this rendering is these sort of translucent elevator shafts. These buildings are not only sort of poor performers in terms of energy performance because of their vintage. We also have some real quality of life issues in them. For example, our elevators are not big enough. And then our trash chutes are literally, like 12 by 12 or something, so quite small. So one of the things that KPF and their team have proposed is, we actually build new elevator shafts that are attached to the buildings, and then we reuse the elevator shafts that are there for additional building services. So we can rewire, we can provide, an NVAC system for trash, or on every floor recycling. So really exciting stuff. And the kind of work that we would like to do cost, sort of this is a rough initial estimate, might be something like $145 or $150 per square foot. And when we talk about comprehensive rehabs at NYCHA today, what we're typically talking about is about $50 a square foot. So to do it this way on a one-off basis, we absolutely want to invest in this kind of project so that we can have the demonstration, so we can point to it and say, when we have the money, we can do this. But ultimately, in order for us to be able to do it day in, day out on the budgets that we have, the comprehensive retrofit needs to come in at about something like $50 a square foot. So that's the challenge that we have, and I'm looking forward to discussing it with all of you. Thank you.